Which comedian has made the riskiest joke of all time? Norm Macdonald knew his jokes about O.J. Simpson would get him fired from SNL and doubled down. That one German comedian who got a room full of former Nazis to seek Heil from muscle memory. Gilbert Gottfried made a 9/11 joke on September 29, 2001 during the taping of the roast of Hugh Hefner. I think it's gotta be this. Triblet, the famous jester for King Francis I of France, once slapped the king's rear end. When the king threatened to execute him, Triblet offered a worse insult by apologizing for mistaking the king for the queen. The king spared his life but banished him from the kingdom. Archie Armstrong, a 17th-century Scottish jester, he was stripped of his office and banished from court for asking the Archbishop of Canterbury, "Who's the fool now?" after a controversial revision to the Book of Common. Tommy Cooper to Queen Elizabeth in a meet and greet lineup at a Royal Variety performance. "Do you mind if I ask you a personal question, Your Majesty?" Shocked silence, panicked onlookers as you do not do this. HMQ, as personal as I'll allow. TC, do you like football? HMQ, not particularly. TC, then can I have your tickets for the FA Cup final? It was a massive risk to take if it had gone wrong, as it was a breach of royal protocol, a big deal. But he made her laugh. Lenny Bruce was not afraid. Hitler enters a town and a young girl approaches him offering him a handful of dust. "What am I supposed to do with this?" asks Hitler, looking puzzled. And the young girl answers, "Everyone says when the Führer bites the dust, everything will get better." Robert Dorsey told this joke in Berlin in 1943 that he was killed at Plötzensee prison later that year. I recall some female Arabic comedian, whose name I've forgotten, soon after 9/11 my name is /, her name /, or at least that's what it says on my pilot's license. Edit, she's Pakistani British, not Arab. Sorry, was initially working on 25-year-old memories here. Different kind of risk, but when Norm Macdonald roasted Bob Saget with corny old one-liners from an old joke book. That could have fallen flat, but somehow he got it to work. My mind immediately went to Robin Williams on a German talk show host. Why are there no German comedians? Robin, maybe because you killed them all. Bill Burr never hit a woman. Louis C.K. dropping a hard R N-word was pretty risky for a white dude. Frankie Boyle has a few. He once said that Camilla is what Diana would have looked like if she survived the crash. He also once joked that Katie Price had married a cage fighter because he's the only person strong enough to stop her giant, mentally disabled son from fucking her, which caused a huge shitstorm. https://www.youtube.com/watch v = jm3 rua 9cq4 https://www.youtube.com/watch v = jm3 rua 9cq4. Stuart Lee also did a bit about Top Gear where he'd say offensive things then say, "Come on, it's just a joke." Like on Top Gear. The Top Gear defense, it's just a joke. This included him saying that he wished Richard Hammond had died in the car crash he was in, describing how he wished the next series of Top Gear was presented by his head on a stick, and saying that he hoped both of Jeremy Clarkson's daughters went blind. It was in a sketch, not stand-up, but the SNL word association with Chevy Chase and Richard Pryor was pretty damn risky. Tosh, but sex is a lot like spinach, if you're forced to have it as a child, you won't enjoy it as an adult. Anthony Jeselnik during one of those roasts, maybe it was Charlie Sheen, where he says to Mike Tyson, and what can be said of Mike Tyson that has already been the title of a Richard Pryor album, like 4 people got it. Patrice O'Neal was one but he didn't even laugh. He just said, "That's funny," which feels like it means more but it. Lenny Bruce was arrested 15 times, but probably some obscure comedian who risked their life. Could see it being for a very good reason or a very bad reason, tbh. Joseph Mueller who got sentenced to death in 1944 for a joke about Hitler. Tosh when he made a joke about replacing his sister's pepper spray with silly string. I won't explain the rest, just watch it. Gilbert's 9/11 joke. He turned it around though. Anthony Jeselnik's Boston Marathon bombing joke that he tweeted on the day of the bombing, "Guys, today there are just some lines that should not be crossed. Especially the finish line. George Carlin, https://www.youtube.com/watch, v equals dpqhctwgrkm, https://www.youtube.com/watch ? v dpqhctwgrkm. Obama roasting Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Obama killed and now the US is fucked. Charles Rocket, briefly a cast member of SNL during the much-maligned 80-81 season, was part of a sketch spoofing Who Shot JR. As part of the sketch, he was shot by a sniper. In the show's closing moments, they asked him how he felt about being shot, and he, possibly improv'd, "We don't know exactly if it was written or not," said the following. "Oh man, it's the first time I've ever been shot in my life. I'd like to know who fucking did it." FCC rules weren't violated because SNL aired past safe harbor hours, 10 p.m., but the press and public reaction to this bit was not great. The entire season had already been getting overwhelming negative reviews, so after this, NBC had had enough. They replaced the showrunner, and the very first thing the new one did was fire Rocket along with almost the entire cast. Only Joe Piscopo and Eddie Murphy were retained. Louis C.K. talking about molesting children in his SNL monologue was pretty wild. Jimmy Carr's mosquito net joke is up there. Damn. Does the writing staff at Charlie Hebdo count? Jimmy Carr knowing not to mess with Islam, saying he doesn't want to get blown up, lol. When Gilbert Gottfried told a joke about his plane making a connection with the Empire State Building, recorded in New York only a few weeks after September 11, he was booed heavily. He tamed the crowd by telling a version of The Aristocrats. Does Bill Burr's Philadelphia incident count? Went to a local comedy place on New Material Night, and saw Winston Hodges, https://www.winstonhodges.com, not a super big name, but he was on that Kevin Hart thing on Netflix recently, so he's gaining some traction. He talked about how Israel was founded in part due to the Holocaust. So now, if you were to go back in time and kill baby Hitler, you'd be preventing 2 genocides, based on how that went over. I'm guessing he hasn't rolled it into his routine. Chris Rock's Black Peep versus, fully spelled out N-word, is right up there with it, set a standard any thinking person could understand, and even some of those who don't think much at all. I look after my kids. What'ya want a medal, goddamn. Crossed racial lines, really a lot of white/any race N-word by his definition, too. Yakov Smirnov. If that guy ever goes back to Russia, watch out. In Russia, comedians don't get to bomb, bombs get to comedians. Jimmy Kimmel at the roast of Flavor Flav, saying he was a worse father than Chris Benoit. David Cross told one that was, well, here it is, https://youtube.be/v5 or 7tmxmsk?si =7y27x2xme9v9z.